Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Sands. And this week we have, and I feel like I say this every episode, that we have a special episode for you, but I think this one truly is. This is an awesome story. And I'm so thankful, Rodg. So, actually, let's do the introductions first. We're talking to Rodg, sorry, which I man, completely blanking on your last name now. I want to say Williams. No, Little.
Yeah,
Rodg Little.
yeah. Or you could just like Prince, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Raj.
And next it'll be a symbol, but now
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Rodg Little.
Can.
Rodg, one of the brewers at Oak Park Brewing in Sacramento, California.
What
We
up,
have
people?
Geoff, who is I'm going to unmute to say hi because he has a lot of noise around him, so we're keeping him muted.
What's up, guys?
And you're going back to mute. And we're also talking to Theodore Mack Jr. And a big part of why we're talking today is a special project in honor of his father. So thank you for joining us, Ted.
Thank you for being here, my friend.
So real quick, though, before we start talking about the important things, I want to get some shameless self-promotion out of the way. I have a new beer coming up soon that I just got the artwork for, so I want to show it to everyone. I guess Geoff doesn't get to see it because he has his monitor in the wrong direction. But I do this series of beers with Saints Row Brewing in Rockville, Maryland. That's just north of DC. And they're called Super Hype Bros. And we've the first edition of it was Super Mario Brothers themed, and the can art was Super Mario Brothers. The second was Street Fighter themed, so it was me and the brewer drawn as Street Fighter characters. This one we had a friend named Chelsea join in, so that's me as Luigi in the cart, and then Tony in the lead, and Chelsea looks like getting very angry because Tony must have did something to cut her off or something, I guess. But this comes out next month, smack dab in between Chelsea and I's birthdays. So it's kind of like a birthday celebration for us. It's called Super Hype Bros 3. All right, enough of the shameless self-promotion. So Rodg reached out to me and told me a little bit about this, and he sent me the press release. And reading through it, it is really a cool story that I'm kind of appalled that isn't out there more. Like it just feels like, especially with all the talk of adding more diversity to craft beer, like Ted, your dad should be talked about a lot more, I feel like.
And I believe he will after we finish the projects that we're working on. And with the help of you in this program here, just letting people know the history of what we have in craft beer and the history that there is in this. My father being the first Black man to own a brewery 50 years ago on October 10th of this year when we celebrated it and we relaunched his beer.
So I think we should start. That's where we should start talking about your father and your father's brewery, and then we can move on to talk about the current project. So, and 50 years ago, was that when the beer was first made, or was that when?
That's when my father took over the brewery in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Actually, my father really wasn't in the beer industry. He was a civil rights giant at the time in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And he led the March on Washington from Wisconsin. At the same time, he was the leader of CORE, Congress for Racial Equality in Milwaukee. So he is head of two organizations. And then he had the opportunity to put together the whole march from the transportation from Wisconsin to get all the people to Washington. And my father did it, and he did it well. He was always about promoting his people, but Dad understood this. that yes, we have the power to vote, but to truly be empowered as a people, you have to have economic power. And that doesn't come until you own something. And he said he wanted a seat at the table. And he wanted a seat at the table. Nobody giving him anything. It's what he earned and deserved. And so one day he was hired on as he got a degree in social work. He was hired by Milwaukee County. And they used to have him train these new white recruits, counselors coming in. And he would train them well. And then they would promote them over my father. And my father kind of got tired of it and said, if you do it again, we called my father the wild bull because he usually didn't take no stuff from nobody. And they did it again. And he did what he said he was going to do. I'm going to leave. And he left. And so then he couldn't get no other job at that level in Milwaukee. So he went to work on the line at A.O. Smith making auto frames for automobiles. And a lot of the other workers would laugh at him because here's this college educated civil rights leader who's been on TV all this time, laying in front of buses and doing all the things that my father did. Here he is working at A.O. Smith. My father knew he had to feed his family, so he did what he had to do, and he did it well. One day he came home, and there was this white gentleman waiting on him. And my mother said, yes, he's been waiting for a while. And my father, when he came to the door, the guy said, hey, Mr. Mack, I am, he named who he was, Mr. Wyndham. Mr. Wyndham at the time was head of Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. He was the president, CEO of Pabst Blue Ribbon. And he was waiting for my father because he said, you know, Mr. Mack, I have an opportunity and I want to discuss something with you. And my father, he was the type of gentleman that would let you know where he stands from point blank, from number one. He said, I want to let you know I don't know if you want me to use some bad language here. I probably won't. He said, I'm not a house N-word, which means that I'm not one to bow down. I'm a man to be reckoned with, and I'm going to do things right. Well, Mr. Wyndham told my father, I know who you are. You know, I've seen what you accomplished. I know exactly who you are. And what I would like to do is for you to come down to the brewery on tomorrow, and I'd like to give you a tour. And my father said, well, you know, again, you know what I said? He said, I know, Mr. Mack, just come down and we'll take a tour. And my father said, okay. He told him what time to be there. Of course, my father was there half an hour before the brewery even opened, just to make the right impression. When he got there half an hour before it opened, it was amazing because Mr. Wyndham was already there. And my father said, aha, another man of excellence. So they hit it off right there by knowing that, hey, these guys about excellence, and so am I. So he gave my father a tour, and after he got done, he said, Mr. Mack, how many blacks have you seen in here? And my father said, less than I can count on one hand. And he said, do you think that's right? And my father said, hell no, it's not right. You know, he said, Milwaukee is about 30% black. So your the workers you have here should represent that. And he says, I'm in agreement. And see, this was a time when they killed Martin Luther King. And when they killed Martin Luther King, there were riots. And people think there are riots now. That's not riots. That was a little disturbance. You had some broken windows and all that. But it got so bad there. Oh, my goodness. I remember that they had tanks coming down the street.
Oh, my.
Yeah. And I remember that because I was a little kid at the time. OK. And some of the kids said, hey, the corner store is giving away free candy. Well, all I know, I'm a little kid. I was like, OK, free candy. I'm going to get my candy. So I went in there, got my free candy, came out, and I went around the corner and there was a tank. All I could see for me was these white soldiers with machine guns. That's what I thought. And a bazooka I thought was pointed right at me. And at that point, I said, I guess this candy was not free. And I ran home scared that these folks were going to come kill me. And that's why I remember how bad it was. We even had to write "Soul Brother" on our house so it don't get burned down. But my father was one that just kept on going. He went there, and the guy told him, well, "What do you think?" And then he told my father, "I want you to make this change because I'm not only the president of Pabst Blue Ribbon, I am chairman of the board of Chamber of Commerce." So he told my father that they made a decision that change has to come. And a lot of times in America, we make change when it gets to the point when there's violence, or it gets to the point when they push right to the edge, and then they have to make change, like you kind of saw right in this time period now. So my father said, only way I will accept in helping you with this, if I only report to you and no one else. And he agreed. And so my father started Pabst Blue Ribbon in a management position, and he hired 300 men, both black and white, but mostly black, because my father wasn't going to make it a racial thing where it's just all black, because that's not the kind of guy he was. But he was going to make sure the majority were black. And he did that. And he proved himself as a manager too. There was a time when the line broke down, and the rest of the white managers would not pay for the overtime, signed a bill for the overtime for the rest of the workers to work. And they would not do overtime once they fixed the line. And my father said, if we do not sign this bill for the overtime, that the shelves will be filled with another beer. And he said, if shelves are filled with another beer, we lose market share. And that's how my family get paid. And that's how your family are eating too. I would sign it. And they were like, okay, this Ian is in trouble now because he's going to get fired when he signed this. Well, my father signed it. And he came home. He told my mother what she did. He said, this might be my last day working there. She said, what did you do this time, Ted? He said, I'm just, you know. And my father walked in the office the next day. And when he got there, the secretary came running into my father's office, the secretary of the CEO, Mr. Wyndham, and said, Mr. Wyndham wants to see you right now. President Wyndham wants to see you right now, right away. And my father said, okay, I'm coming. And he was coming in behind her, and he strode in to his office. And basically what happened was, as my father came in, he told my father to take a seat. He said, take a seat, Mr. Mack. My father told me that he said, no, I'll take this standing up. And he said, okay. And he said, well, is this your signature that approved this overtime? My father said, yes. He said, why did you do that? And he said, because your family, my family, and everyone's family in here, we only make money when our beer is on those shelves so people can buy it. And I was not going to give an opportunity for our competitors to get an advantage over us. He said, that's why I signed it, and I'll sign it again. And he looked at my father and he said, Mac, that's why I hired you. You're the only man in this company that has the balls to stand up to me. And I knew I hired the right one, and you would do the right thing. Well, after that point, he told my father, I want you, as a black man back in that day, to learn everything about the beer business, except being a master brewer. And my father did just that. And then opportunity struck. There used to be a beer called Blatz. Blatz was owned by Pabst Blue Ribbon, but there was an antitrust situation that came up, and they said they had to divest themselves of that. Well, my father was a manager at Pabst Blue Ribbon, and so he had all the inside information. So he started going around asking all the white secretaries about information about Pabst, Blatz, I mean. And they gave it to him, and they little did they know my father was putting together a business plan. And he went home, and in his book, Memoirs of Theodore Mack Sr., he wrote The Country Boy, Memoirs of Theodore Mack Sr. He wrote this. He said, I had to make a decision. I had this crazy thought in my head that no black man has ever done. He says, but you know what? I'm going to do it. And he called up one of his main partners. I think it was Crosby. And Crosby said, yeah, Mac. He said, I got a crazy idea. He said, yeah, Mac, I know how it is when you get these crazy ideas. What we going to do now? And he told him about it. And then Crosby said, let's do it. And that was it. My father ended up writing a proposal that New York bankers, it was a black bank that gave him a $9 million loan contingent on them winning the bid. Bid day came. Everybody bid it. The last bid was this black group that shocked them coming in the door, my father. And they bid $9 million, which was the highest bid. So apparently they won blacks. Well, back in the day, just like systematic racism is alive today, they did it to him. All of a sudden, this big situation came where you can rebid if you're white. And they allowed G. Heidemann to rebid at $10.8 million. But see, my father already did his research. He said, boy, that place was worth $45 million. He said, all I needed my banker to do to get an appraisal of what the true worth was, and we're going to up our bid and win it anyway. The judge would not let the black group rebid. Oh, it's going to take too long. So they just gave it to G. Heinemann. And my father was crushed because he said, this is an opportunity for blacks to be at the table, to own a major brewery and to have impact. But systematic racism made sure that wasn't so. And my father said, I told my guys, listen, this is history and the whole world is looking at us. He said, the problem is that they usually see in blacks hollering, screaming, and out of control in the way they want to picture us. But he said, they're going to see professional black men handle it in a professional way. And we're not going to be hollering and screaming. He was disappointed. He still fought on, but he told them, y'all did what you wanted to do, but I'm not going to give up. I'll be back. And that he was. He got plenty of offers from breweries at that point. And because he knew the business at that time, all of them were junk. And he said, I'm not going to buy any junk. And then came a guy with this brewery, this small brewery out of Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And my father said, Oshkosh, Wisconsin? He said, wait a minute, man. He said, is there any blacks in Oshkosh, Wisconsin? He said, I'll get back to you on that. He came back and there were no blacks in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And my father said, my kids are young kids and I have to take them to school. And you know, I want them in an environment where they feel safe. And he said, well, Mr. Mack, there are some students there in the university. And come to find out, there was one, when we moved, my father finally said, well, I'll go check it out. He said, I'll give you that much. I'll go check it out because most of the stuff I looked at was junk. He checked it out and he called one of his friends, Crosby, said, let's go check it out. They went and checked it out. He said it was pretty sound for what he thought. But my father was a smart brother. He said, you know what? This is a situation where I need an engineer. I'm not an engineer. I need to make sure the plant is sound and everything else is. Guess who he called up? He called up Wyndham. Wyndham, who was part of that taking blacks away from him. He knew he was part of it, but he said, Mac, I owe you one. And they were friends anyway at this time. He said, I'm going to send my best engineers and my brew master to go check that place out and make sure that this is what you think it is. And he did that. And the rest is history. My father brought the brewery. He had to go through a situation where now he couldn't use that $9 million loan because stipulation was on Platt. So he had to go out and get a SBA loan, which he did. and they promised him that they were going to help him and they were going to help him expand. And this was when they had a situation where they're going to allow minorities to get a piece of the pie, so they say, but that was a lie too. And so my father did the paperwork, did everything did. And my father knew this because I didn't bring this picture down. I have a picture of him with his finger in the face of a governor. And that's because he got that governor in office. The black vote got him in office. And the governor said, I'm going to have a black judge in Milwaukee County, which never has happened before. And he called up all the politicians and the civil rights people and said, you know, I'm going to be announcing the judge. And they thought this was it, since you calling us. And he announced another white judge, and they were angry, just so angry. And my father, after he cooled off, he was the one that spoke for the whole group and put his finger in his nose, said, listen here, we put you in office and we'll take you out of office. You need to put a black judge in Milwaukee County. He was that kind of guy. He was a guy that got things done. When he first went up to Oshkosh, when they approved, they lost the paperwork. So he had to go to Washington and take his senators up there and Congress people, and they found the paperwork, and all of a sudden he got his loan. But there was a stipulation. He didn't have to come up with 10%. He didn't have to come up with 15 or 20%. He had to come up with 50% of the loan. And he said, I never heard no craziness like this. But he said, you know what? This is meant to stop me. And he said, this is going to get my end up. Back in the day, it says, this is going to get me, I'm mad, and this is going to get, you're not going to stop me. Well, he said, we'll do stock. So on the day that they were selling stock, there were only two places, but they couldn't sell stock until what? You dealt with Security Exchange, right? Guess what Security Exchange did? They lost his paperwork until he talked to the governor who he got in office. And he said to that guy, if you do not find Mack's paperwork and get it taken care of, you'll be fired. All of a sudden his paperwork came up.
It's crazy how that happens.
Yeah, isn't that something? And then all of a sudden, he was able to do the stock buy. Okay, so there's only two places they could sell it: Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Oshkosh, Wisconsin was all white. Oshkosh, Wisconsin was a place that really backed George Wallace. If you remember who George Wallace was, he was this real racist that ran for president. And then in Milwaukee, so he expected that the sales to Milwaukee would go all right because mostly black people were going to buy it in Milwaukee. But in Oshkosh, he said, I'm not going to go with all my backup, with all my partners and all that. I'm going by myself. He said, son, I put on my mohair suit, and they're going to see an intelligent black man handling his business come up here and representing that went to college, played football for Woody Hayes, and went to Ohio State and finished off his degree at Marquette University. And he said, they're going to see this one. And he went up there by himself, and nobody else. I think my mother went up there with him, and he said he was shocked and surprised. The parking lot was full, and those people were there to buy people's beer. And I read an article about it as I was doing the research, and this one white lady said, I knew it was a good beer. And I knew from him talking, he's a good person. And people are working from Oshkosh there, and I'm going to support what we know is right. And it's not because he's black, but it's because he's a businessman and because we know that it's a sound beer. And that it was. And that's how People's Beer got started.
What was the name of the brewery before your father purchased it?
It was People's Beer. People's Beer
so they didn't change the name.
It was around for a long time. The recipe that I gave these guys was 100-year-old recipe.
Wow. Well, let's take our first real quick sponsor break, And then I think this would be a perfect segue then to talk about how this project came to be.
That'd be great.
We'll be right back.
Yes, sir.
If you haven't heard about our beer dinners, well, now you have. Typically, the last Tuesday of each month, we partner with a local brewery and craft an exclusive 5-course dinner. Each course is thoughtfully paired with some of the finest craft beer available. You'll meet the brewery, enjoy memorable pairings and service, and have a damn good time. Like us on Facebook to stay in the know when tickets become available, because they will sell out quick.
Idiom Brewing Company proudly offers a delicious variety of beers to satisfy the most discerning tastes. Best known for their wide array of IPAs, delicious fruited sours, and robust porters and stouts, Idiom prides themselves on continuing to innovate, utilizing new and experimental hops, local ingredients, and unique flavor profiles. Idiom has a simple goal in mind: to bring people from all walks of life together to enjoy themselves and each other. Idiom Brewing Company is located in downtown Frederick, just south of the intersection of East Street and East Patrick Street, with ample seating and directly on Carroll Creek.
Uncapped is brought to you with support from McClintock Distilling, Maryland's first and only organic certified distillery. They are well known for their award-winning gin and are rapidly growing a name for themselves for their Matchstick Bourbon and Bootjack Rye Whiskey that have both won double gold at international spirits competitions. You can visit them in historic downtown Frederick along Carroll Creek for tours and tastings. Go to McClintockDistilling.com for more information. All right. I also took this opportunity to grab myself a beer. I was going to stick with water, but I was starting to feel jealous seeing Rodg and Geoff take a swig of a beer every once in a while. Although I have to say, I don't know if there's anything that would be more polar opposite of the people's beer than what I'm drinking. I don't think it has the same tasting notes as a heavily fruited sour. But I'll stick with what I know.
There you go. There you go. Nothing wrong with that.
So how did this come to be? So it's a very I can't think of the right word to say, but like a bi-coastal product or a collaboration kind of. So it's a brewery that started in Wisconsin. A gentleman who's living in Atlanta with a brewery that's in Sacramento. So how did this start out? Who approached who, and how did it take off?
This is a story.
Don't forget, Geoff, if you want to talk, you have to raise your hand.
This is a story that when I tell people, they're like, wow, that is hard to believe. See, my father was a very spiritual man. And his grandmother was a slave. His mother was slave too. So his mother always told him, believe in God. And she made sure the family was grounded in their faith. And even today, I'm a deacon at a church because of this that been given to us to believe in something higher than ourselves. That would
sorry to interrupt you real quick, but I was going to ask you what you did for a living, because you're an amazing storyteller. And so like that makes complete sense. You're just one of those people that when you're like are talking, you're like just on the edge of your seat listening to every word, like how to tell a story perfectly.
Wow. And I'm an author. I wrote a book about my father and this journey from a family perspective. It's called A Man Unafraid, Reflections of My Father. And it should be coming out probably the first quarter of next year. And then my father wrote his book, Country Boy, Memoirs of Theodore Mack Sr. So they both should be coming out. I believe that'd be powerful to what's going on right now as we expand this launch, and then we'll be able to hear his story and hear my story, some things that's in my story, because what happened was pretty awesome. When we moved, there was this big case filled with his information. And that's where I got all the information from the book. That the lawsuit, the $100 million lawsuit that he had against the government, all the articles that I write about, I didn't have to go online for most of that. I got all of that from his notes and from his articles that he saved and his book that he wrote. And in my book, I have a handwritten speech that he did. And I said, wow, this would be pretty cool to put in the book. But anyway, how it started, it was like 3 weeks before this happened. I pray every morning, okay? And I do something called discipleship groups where I am basically mentoring about 8 couples. Okay, we meet twice a month and help them deal with this life called marriage, which is not easy. If anybody married, you know it is not easy, but it's worth fighting for. And as I was doing that, a gentleman called up from, he was from a university of, where is it? New Mexico or something like that. And he said he wanted to do a book on my father and wanted me to co-write it with him. I said, okay, that's cool. I'm agreement. Now I said, but when I told him Dad, they already did a book and we're gonna get it published, he was kind of disappointed. I said, well, we can do it from another avenue. You can have the reflection of the family view, and view me and view my mother, and then you can write it that way. He said, that would be great. Well, after he came down and did the interview and everything, he got back. I get an email and said that we're not going to do a collaboration, but at this point, the university had wants just him on the face of the cover. And, I said, okay. Yeah, I wasn't happy. I was very angry at the time. And I said, man, this reminds me of some things that happened to my father, of people who not keeping their words and thinking you can fool us with that race thing. And I was angry. But then I heard something in my spirit, and it almost sounded like my dad. And my dad had this booming voice, and it just this presence that would knock you out when he come. When he walked in the room, white or black, whoever you are, you knew who Ted Mack was. And it was like he said to me, boy, you know what I would do. And I was like, wow. Then I heard something else like, what you gonna do now? And I said, I'm gonna write it myself. And that's what started this whole project. I started writing this book. And like night and day, I was on it 24/7. And my wife was like, wow. I said, I'm just driven to get this book. And then I was praying one day and it was like, you got to get this book and this other book I was working on. You have to have everything done by July 4th of this year. And I said, okay, I'm going to get it done by July 4th. I got it done by July 4th. But 3 weeks before then, there's a prophetic ministry at our church, and they spoke to me and they said, you know what? There's something about to happen. They said, you're about to go through a promotion and you're about to be put in front of people that's going to surprise you. And I see a change, and you're going to be able to make a change for people, especially for young black men, both old and young, but especially those young black men that need a voice. And you're going to be that voice for them, because I do a lot of mentoring. So I was like, and you're going to be expanding your businesses to help this, what God is calling to. So I was like excited about that. Then I was told about, the surprise thing. And then on July 6th, 2 days after I was told to get it done, I get a message from a Nicole West. And, if you're married, my brother, you're not gonna get nothing on Facebook from no woman, and you don't let your wife know, or you can get in trouble, right? So I saw Nicole West. I said, uh-oh. I said, somebody trying to hunt a brother down. I said, baby, there's a Nicole West. You know Nicole West? She said, no. I said, I don't know either, I said, but they sent me this information, I'm not gonna open it up unless you checking it out with me. She said, go on, open up. Well, I opened it up and it said that I'm the assistant of the former mayor of Sacramento. And I said, I think I know who that is, And he really wants to talk to you about your father. And he has a strong interest in what your father has done. And he's a fan. I was like, wow, okay. I don't know what this is, but okay. And so eventually I gave her my number. And next couple minutes, I get a call. Hey, I'm Kevin Johnson. First of all, I just want to let you know that I'm calling because a while back I brought this brewery. And we're thinking about doing Black Lives Matter beer and all that. But he said, when doing our research, we looked up and saw your father, Theodore Mack Sr. And he's the original Black Lives Matter. He is the original who started this beer. And the more I read about him, the more powerful it is. And so we started talking. And then we both realized that there's something there. And for the most part, I don't look at a person's celebrity or anything like that. That doesn't really, I'm not one of these guys who go, oh, this is who, I don't care about that. My thing is, how is a person's heart? And I liked his heart. He may not be perfect, because I know I'm not perfect, but he had a good heart from what I observed. And I told my family that too. So we made an agreement, a business agreement, because my dad told me to be a businessman. So a business agreement, made the LOI on how we're going to go forward. And then we had a contract. And then when we had all that tied down, we pushed further and further with the vision. And that what culminated in me coming down there on October. Well, I came down there before October 10th. I came down there when they had a first anniversary of Fixton's restaurant that he has there. And he's doing a lot in the community. And that's what they showed me. That's what I was impressed with. They have restaurants, Slim and Husky's, Fixins. They have Oak Park Brewery, which has food too, as you see. Geoff was getting into some of that pie, which they didn't have when I was there, else I've been into it. But I liked what he's doing. And not only that, when they showed me the school. Now, there's a school that they have there. And this high school, I believe, only 30%. When they got it, only 30% went to college, which is not a good rate. But they told me, guess what it is this year, Mr. Mack? I said, what is that? They said, it is 96%. I was like, what? And that blew me away, because not only are they doing the economic side, but they're doing the educational side. And and the community is just vibrant. Jobs and people are feeling good about themselves. And then I said, yeah, I made the right choice. So that's how I got connected with them.
Is a lot of that town's revitalization, that area, based on the brewery?
No.
Okay, I didn't know.
It's based on what the mayor did with, I think it's called 40 Acres. And basically what it is empowerment of the community. And he told me what he would do is go and look at some of the best practices of the other mayors around. And he took the best practices and brought them to Sacramento. And that's what you're seeing happen right there in that little area there. And it's pretty awesome to see.
I just know there's a lot of places throughout the country. I can think of one specifically in Pittsburgh, where a brewery came in and was not like 100% responsible, but like was very instrumental in the revitalization of a whole area, because of the added money that brought into the town.
And that's powerful. It can have that impact. And, that's one thing why I loved it also, because it was that opportunity. My father was all about empowerment and jobs and owning something so you can hire people. And like you say, revitalized. That means that, there are 200 and something people that have jobs because of these restaurants and the brewery and all that from the community.
Yeah.
From that community. And what I love when I walked in there, now look at this picture. You see Geoff and you see Rodg. When I first got there, I saw this multicultural thing going on, and it wasn't a forced thing. It was family. You know what I'm saying? And I knew at that point that this was the right decision, because I pray about it. I don't move unless I feel like it's the right move. Okay. This was the right move. This is what my father, that picture back there that you see back there, this is something that he would have wanted. Because when he went to Oshkosh, the story was that he was, okay, now it's a black brewery and he's going to fire all the white folks. And now, my father's not that kind of man. He said, listen, I own people's beer and nobody can tell me what to do with people's beer. And he said, all the people who are working here to make it survive and make it what it is now are still going to be here. And there were no blacks up there except for him. He was the only black in people's beer. But he said, if I hire more and have other distributions and do whatever I'm going to do in Milwaukee and hire blacks, which he did, he says, that's my prerogative. He says, this is not a black beer or a white beer. This is a people's beer. And that's what it is. And so we got together, and this is how it all came together. And I let Geoff throw in his part. I'm done, Geoff.
Raise your hand, Geoff.
All right, we'll see if we can unmute him. There we go.
Okay, you guys hear me okay? Okay, so
actually, wait.
Yeah, as Mr. Mack pointed out,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Actually, why don't we take our last sponsor break? That way we can just talk completely uninterrupted for the rest of the time, and not we'll get into your story and so we will be right back.
Good.
Cool.
There are many reasons why I have chosen District East for where I purchase beer. I love the flexibility of being able to make a custom six-pack or take home a crowler from one of the 8 beers on tap. Their friendly and knowledgeable staff do an amazing job at keeping a diverse selection on hand. You can even purchase artwork from the monthly featured artist. District East is located on Northeast Street in Frederick, in the same shopping center as Family Mill and Rockwell Brewery. You can find today's beer lists on the District East Facebook page or at www.districteast.beer. I'm excited to announce our newest sponsor, Vanish Farmwoods Brewery. Vanish is a brewery and entertainment complex located on a 62-acre hops and apple farm in Luckett's, Virginia, just 20 minutes from Frederick, Maryland and Leesburg, Virginia. With over 20 beers on tap, a selection of wines and ciders, along with multiple food options, there is something for everyone. Vanish has live music on Saturdays and Sundays and a wide variety of special events. Go to vanishbeer.com for information on everything they have to offer. All right, Geoff. I wish you luck following up Ted, because I personally don't want to talk because I don't think anyone has any interest in what I have to say at this point.
I mean, yeah.
But hey, best of luck to you, buddy.
It won't be nearly as impactful. But okay, you ready? We good? Okay. So, as Mr. Mack mentioned, Kevin Johnson is one of the owners here at Oak Park Brewing Company. We reopened about a year and a half ago at this point in time, and we took over for an old brewery that went out of business, and it was also called Oak Park Brewing Company. And they had some negative stigmatisms in the beer industry out here in Sacramento about the name, and Kevin was very adamant about keeping the name Oak Park Brewing Company because this was his hometown. This is the neighborhood he grew up in, and he wanted to continue to support his neighborhood. And once we heard that, we were all on board, and we wanted to, continue to push the community of Oak Park forward and help be a very productive part of the community here. We focus on diversity, inclusion, a place of community where people feel welcome. And, one of Kevin's requirements was that he wanted to hire someone from the neighborhood. And as soon as he said that, my wife Becca and I, she handles the social media marketing and all that. She's like the third wheel in our brewing team here with Rodg and I. And we both looked at each other and we're like, oh, we know who we're going to hire. And that was Rodg Little, of course. And so we had an initial conversation with Rodg, and he ended up having a follow-up conversation with Kevin about coming on board and the vision of the company. But one of Kevin's visions, even early on before we opened, was he brought up People's Brewing Company. And, you know, as soon as we opened, we had a picture of Theodore Mack Sr. giving his speech on October 10th, addressing the community, and the day he bought the brewery. So that was something that we've had in our hallway since we've opened. And, you know, this is something that it started there small, and then, you know, Kevin reached out to Mr. Mack and his family, and they have come to terms and have made a great partnership. And we're really proud of this beer and what it represents and how it supports our community, and it'll soon be supporting the community, hopefully nationwide at some point in time. We are looking in other avenues to produce the beer at a bigger rate, a larger volume than what we can do now, because we're a tiny 7-barrel brew house here, and we can't produce it fast enough. So we are very excited to be a part of this project and what it represents to the country and what it represents to the Mack family and to Oak Park.
Can we talk to Rodg a little more about that? Mainly because there's a really bad squealing noise when I unmute you.
Okay.
So you're going back in the corner.
Okay.
And if you want to talk,
I'll go jump on Rodg's computer.
Same rules apply. Raise your hand or go jump on Rodg's computer.
Okay, sorry about that.
But, you are back to muted. So Rodg, though, I guess what is that kind of looking for a contract brewery situation, or doing it as a more collaborative thing like Black is Beautiful?
That's
Or is that-
that's a great question for Geoff. That's more on the admin side of
Dang it.
So yeah, Geoff, raise your hand. So he can tell you more about that and go into detail. Are you available, Geoff?
Is this better?
Actually, yeah, that sounds a lot better.
He's on
Okay.
the move. He's on the move.
I just left the brewing area, so I'm going to pop down real quick here. So you guys can hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound significantly better now.
Okay, I'm going to have to go back in there, though, in a minute, but I'll just chime in here real quick. So right now, Oak Park Brewing Company has a Type 75 license, which limits our capacity to brew to 5,000 barrels a year. And we are brewing about 1,200 or so barrels right now. We are looking at expanding our current facility to hit that 5,000 barrel mark. We are also looking at building our own new brewing facility with a Type 23 license.
Wait, hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Mainly only because it sounds like there's music playing in the background.
I got you.
And I'll be uploading this to YouTube, and that could end up getting this struck.
We have Pandora Mood, so we got our licensing okay. Maybe I'll go in the back deep corner of the brewery. Maybe that'll be
right. We just can't
If
win.
not, I'll just go back and
I think we just go back to letting Ted talk.
yeah, right? I mean, is that any better? Is it too loud still?
No, actually, that's fine. It wasn't so much that it was loud as there was just like a high pitched squeal. So I think it was just picking up.
Yeah, I was sitting right next to our brew house pump, and it's kind of old. So.
There,
okay.
That's much better.
Okay. So as I was saying, we are actively creating a new Type 23 license here at Oak Park Brewing Company, so we could go out and build, which would allow us to distribute hopefully nationwide at some point in the near future. In the meantime, once we do get our license approved while we're building out our facility, we've already had talks with other local breweries here in Sacramento, and we would plan to have talks with breweries in other states like Wisconsin and Georgia, to where we can contract brew with them for the time being to get the beer out to the public. Yeah.
So that the plan would be to take it nationwide.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Global.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why think small? I'm an idiot. Thankfully, I'm not the one making any decisions.
Hey, does it sound better, Chris?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I don't even have to mute you this time.
Well, I'm like holding my computer up against a fermenter right now, so I'm gonna have to walk back up front.
Okay.
Yeah, you should be.
All right.
Right. Me, and when I want to talk, I'll just walk back here.
Sounds good. You're
Okay.
going back on mute now.
Cool. All right.
Actually, let's talk about you. Like, so typically my episodes revolve around like talking to the people, how they got into brewing, how the brewery got started. So Rodg, why don't you tell us, like, how did you get into brewing, and then how'd you end up as a brewer at a brewery? Because I think that's, you know, like that's a big initiative of the Brewers Association, nationally, and a lot of local ones, to try to make the brewing teams at breweries and ownerships more diverse.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. And before I speak on how I got into becoming a commercial brewer and doing the home brews, so in my opinion, if you have to tell somebody that they have to do something, you know, that means they're on their own accord. So with Oak Park Brewing, we all have great hearts here. So coming into this, I got behind the vision. Once I sat down with Kevin, the vision fired me up, not so much the job. I had a job, you know, making pretty decent money. But when he started talking about the vision, I was sold on the vision. So that's how I ended up at Oak Park Brewing. As far as like getting into home brewing, I got a beer tab that was super high at my buddy's establishment. And I was like, dude, there's no way I've bought like $400 worth of beer. I like drinking beer and buying beers for friends, but there's no way. So I ended up paying that tab, and I just took a couple months off, took the money, like set money aside that I could utilize to buy home brewing equipment, books, started reading in the beer world. Here in Sacramento, I was surrounded by a lot of home brewers, commercial brewers, inspiring brewery owners. So I just started hanging around and learning. And, I got turned out by the Belgian styles. So I wasn't a beer fan until about like 16 years ago. So my first beer was a Guinness. And when my buddy Rob at Pangea Beer Cafe, when he opened up his spot and incorporated, the Belgian style beers, man, it was like game on. I was looking for flavor. All the Belgian styles had flavors. I was learning about, the hoppier beers, the IPAs, the pale ales, learning about the Trappist beers, just you name it, man. I just jumped into it head first, and it became a hobby, but then it turned into an expensive hobby.
It adds up fast, doesn't it?
Yeah, it adds up quick. And, I just got an opportunity to get around different people. I got around, people that were judging beers for competitions, also like reps for like breweries, distributors, also on the ingredient side of it, the equipment side of it. And I just felt like this is where I needed to be. So I just stuck to it, and here we are today.
What were you doing before you got into brewing?
I was actually working for a company, equipment rental company, but they put on beer events like beer festivals.
Okay.
Like special events. We catered, did weddings, like anything that had liquids involved, we were there. So that gave me an opportunity to get hands-on knowledge and actually interactions with like, keg machines, like building out beer trailers, trucks, things like that. So that's what I was doing before I started brewing commercially. Just I was in the beer world.
Yeah, I always find it interesting is there's just so many people in craft beer that were in some sort of technology or finance. Seem to be the two places that people come from that they've gotten sick of doing, and then the romance of craft beer calls them in.
Yeah.
So how long ago did you say that well, I guess it was reopened, that Oak Park reopened?
It was about 1.5 years ago. So it wasn't, they basically slid back in. It's like there was no grand opening. So in June, about 1.5 years ago, the doors reopened and people just started sliding in, even me. I just popped in one day and fell in love with the Vividonis, which you're going to be kegging and canning weeks. So it's a double IPA, but it's like ultimately, man, the community started coming around. Things started picking up. Geoff hit me up. I was like, okay, I'm in. I talked to Kevin. Let's get it on. So initially, Geoff's plan was to have 8 beers on tap, and we would have guest taps. But once we started working together, it was like, man, we were coming up with like recipes, and the beers were great, and we just kept rolling with it. And yeah, man, it's like I'm here.
I like your label art.
Cool.
There's a lot of cool ones. I've seen that RBG one all over the place.
Yeah. So that's Becca. Becca is the third wheel in this brewing team, and she holds it down. She keeps Geoff and I in check. But as far as like the art, she's an artist, and she definitely reaches out to the community, and she makes it happen. So we get a lot of compliments about our cans. So if anything, it's like you pick it up and you read a story, you're going to remember that story, which is going to allow you to remember the beer style. So she does a great job, and I'm blessed to be working with her and Geoff.
Do you guys have like styles that you specialize, or it kind of seems like you just specialize in making beer? That if it's beer, you're gonna make it and put it out.
Yeah, that's we have a lot of requests, and I know Geoff and I, we communicate a lot, so we're always throwing things around. If we can't get to it, like right now, somewhere down the road, we're gonna be doing something. We're actually gonna try to brew a kettle sour in a couple of days. That's something we've been talking about for like almost a year. So Geoff has a question. Yes.
Yeah. What was it? Were you waving to someone, or you want to talk, Geoff?
I was just saying bye to some guests. So that was
I thought it was like kill Rodg, cut Rodg. Yeah. But no, right. Geoff,
you're going back on mute.
Well, Geoff, actually, you want to talk about the different styles? Like, how do we come up with styles?
Well, real quick question too. Okay. So you're doing your first kettle sour. Are kettle sours big on the West Coast?
Kettle sours, we get a lot of recommendations for doing sours, but we have a small system, and then if you brew a traditional sour beer and you mess up, that's all you're going to end up brewing. Yeah. So, we're open to doing the kettle sour. Hopefully in the near future, when we get another brewing setup, we could do sours, but we're strapped for space, and, that won't allow us to venture out into the sour world. But kettle sours are moving extremely well out here, along with the IPAs and the traditional sours. So
yeah, I wasn't sure. I mean, out here in this area, I guess even the Midwest, since one of the biggest ones are in Illinois. They hate when you say Illinois. Like heavily fruited sours are like basically the new juice box for adults. So so many people, people love them, but then like so many people talk down on them. But I've always kind of thought like anything that brings more people to check out craft beer is a good thing, whether you like it personally or not. It's a good thing.
Yeah, that's like, remember when hazies weren't a thing?
but they're delicious.
Yeah, and I was there as a beer judge. Like we were like, man, this is a flaw in an IPA. So and we saw people doing really wonky things to get that haze, and we were like, dude, this is a fad. It's not gonna last. But boy, were we wrong.
That's like I've had some beers recently from like one of the most popular breweries in this area, and they pour almost like syrup. Like they're so thick that CO2 barely goes into suspension, and like it like slowly bubbles to a head. And I'd send a photo to to a friend of mine who's been a professional brewer for a long time, and it was like a reply with something was like, yeah, I remember when we used to kick our asses trying to for clarity.
True.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm a big fan of the fruited sours as I sit here and drink one named after me with my picture on it. So Sam's by Full Tilt. I love this beer.
All right. Am I on?
You are. I'm
Okay.
allowing you to talk.
Cool. Out in the West Coast, heavily fruited kettle sours are huge and very popular. There's a couple breweries out here that do them really well. And they definitely bring people to your brewery and get people in the door. And that's why we're kind of excited about trying one this week. We don't have the fruit dialed in yet, but one thing we stress here at Oak Park is education. And that's one thing, trying to get people in the door. Then you can have that conversation with them and tell them, we have a table beer that's going to be on tap here this week. And we have a Groot ale with no hops that's on tap. So we try to focus on a wide variety of beers just because we want to be able to help educate people and open their minds to different styles of beers. Because when someone says they don't like beer, in my opinion, they just never tried.
Yeah, they haven't tried the right one.
The right one, right? Yeah. So I think there's a beer flavor style that would fit with anyone. They just need to open their minds and try different things, and that's what we try to do here. We obviously love our classic styles, West Coast IPAs and lagers and pale ales, and
I tell you, that's where I've been actually returning to a lot lately. West Coast IPAs and just Pilsners. There was that brewery I mentioned earlier that like they're ridiculously popular for their heavily fruited sours, and they sent me a box of beer, and it was all these sours and then a Czech Pilsner. I had that Czech Pilsner, and it was that was the first one I drank, and it was absolutely amazing.
Nice.
So I definitely have started to have much more of an appreciation for the crispy boys lately.
Definitely, yeah. And then the other thing that's big out here on the West Coast, I'm sure it's big out there too, is pastry stouts. Higher ABV, heavy on the cereal additions or sugar additions, and just very thick, like you were saying, and syrupy. We've done one, technically it probably wasn't a pastry stout because it dried out. So where we wanted it to be drier than what a pastry stout would be. So, but we've done one imperial stout that had some adjuncts in it. But
I made one with a local brewery that was Three Musketeers themed.
Oh, nice.
So it was a chocolate mousse stout, and then we did a variant of it aged in rum barrels that was just mind-blowingly good.
That sounds delicious.
And then there's still a whiskey barrel that it's aging in that we're waiting to try.
Okay, so, put me back on mute real quick.
Yeah, you're on mute again.
He's on the move.
So whatever became of the People's Beer Company?
It eventually, my father was the last one to hold it, and he had a contract with the U.S. Army, which was almost like a setup, and eventually it just went bankrupt. There was a time that even Nigeria was coming in. They had some people from Nigeria coming in to probably invest in it and save it. But there was a beer cartel at the time, and they did something to my father called black bagging. Black bagging is when they try to push you off the shelves. The big boys do that.
Yeah.
And that's what they did to him. But he had a way around it. He actually brought another label, which was Chief Oshkosh, what had a bigger distribution project, and they black bagged Chief Oshkosh. And so that really was a nail that was in the coffin. But when he had those gentlemen try to come over here from Nigeria because they heard a black man owned a brewery and they were wealthy, and I guess they were going to help him out. And so when the beer cartel found out about that, and of course, when it's systematic racism, you can do it. Systemic racism, what you can do is the government can help you out. They canceled all their visas, so they couldn't come over here. So, you know, when you had all that going against you, eventually he was told by his sources inside the government that, and other sources, that they basically were going to do what they had to make sure that that was his last year. And it was, you know, but he was never one to give up. He still, he went right from there, and he started the first, he didn't start, actually, there was a hospital that was looking for help. And my father was the administrator of the hospital when he agreed to do it. And he actually saved the hospital. And it was actually a black run hospital with black doctors and nurses and everything else. And he proved that it can be done. And he made sure that Blue Cross paid them, which they tried not to back in the day. But my father had part of the experience in the civil rights movement, so he knew how to put pressure on people. And they lost, and my dad won, and that hospital won. But my father already had another vision. He was a guy that, he was a businessman. So he had business plans and other businesses, because he said that's what he's going to do for the rest of his life. And that's what he did. So he went from there and started a chain of group homes called Crispus Attucks, named after the first person who died fighting for this country in the Revolutionary War. It was a black man called Crispus Attucks, and my father named a chain of group homes after him that would take these young kids, mostly black, that would come from the courts, and the courts will give a decision if either you go to Crispus Attucks or you go to juvie, which is young folks jail. And a lot of them chose Crispus Attucks. But what we did was we changed the hearts and minds. We told them what they could do. We gave them potential, and that gives strength to these people. A lot of them young men end up, if they stayed in our program for the duration, they all either got a GED or they graduated from high school. And some of them end up going to the military. I remember one of the worst guys there. This guy was in the gang. He was terrible. He was all this stuff. I always had to deal with him because I worked there. You know, I was going to college, but on weekends, I worked at Crispus Attucks, was making a good salary doing that. So I worked for 24 hours, not 48 hours straight. But anyhow, I remember went in the club one day. And in my younger days, when I used to club, and this young brother came up to me. He was in, I think it was Marines. He had his Marines outfit on, and he was like, "How you doing, Mr. Mack?" And I didn't recognize him. I said, "How you doing, young man?" I said, "Hey, I appreciate you and your service." And he said, "You don't realize who I am." He said, "Yo, you're a soldier that's fighting for my country. I realize that." He said, "No, I'm." And when he named the name, I said, "Oh, that's you?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I thank you for everything you guys did for me." He said, "I know I gave you hell, but you turned me into a man, and I appreciate it." And so we have things like that. And then another one end up, you know, he came back and he said, you know, he was playing football in college and all these things. We try to empower people. And, you know, that's what I do now. As I mentor, I try to empower. And, you know, as with People Beer, I just want this to be a platform for me to be able to help other people with the book, and hopefully a movie come out of it. And we're just going to keep pushing forward. And but it's not about me. Like my father, it was never about him. It was about who he can help in the process. And I remember one Christmas, I will never forget this, but this told me of the heart of my father. He had this big roll of money. It was a stack. I was like, wow. He said, I'm going Christmas shopping. I was just so happy. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get so many gifts this Christmas. I couldn't wait till he got home. And the tea was going like all day, deep into the night. I said, where's Dad at? I'm waiting to see these bags come in. Then I had to go and find the Christmas presents, which I always did. But anyway, Dad came back. It was late, no bags. And I'm like bewildered. I thought you said you're going Christmas shopping. He said, I did, son. He said, all y'all come in there. I need to talk to you. We like, where are the presents at? You don't need to talk to us. You need to show us the presents. But he said, as I was shopping, I was looking at people. And I saw a whole lot of hurting people. People were putting stuff back. Couldn't afford it for their kids, and the kids, crying and stuff at grocery stores. They couldn't afford this. We can't have that. We can't have that. And Pops ended up giving them, I give this because we said it was an old lady and 2 young kids, and they wanted all this stuff, and she couldn't really afford it. He gave her a couple of bills. I mean, a couple $100. And she screamed and hollered and got all this attention. But Dad didn't stay there. He walked to the other side of the store. He said, I saw this older white guy, he looked like he had some better days. And he was struggling. He was looking to see what he could get. Dad gave him 100. He just said, thank you. Oh my God, thank you. God is good. Okay. But Dad just went on up. He said he kept doing that. There was this white lady with these little children. She did the same thing. See, it wasn't black or white. It was people that were in need. My father kept doing it till that stack of money was gone. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I don't know, could have been thousands. I don't know, thousands of dollars. But we didn't get all them gifts. We got a few gifts, but we didn't get the big Christmas. And he taught me, it's not so much what you receive that matters. It's what you give that matters. And he said that was the best Christmas he ever had because he was giving and he was meeting people at their need. And it wasn't a black need or a white need. It was a human need. And he taught us to have that kind of heart because when we went to Oshkosh, we were the only black family in Oshkosh. Could you understand that? And when we left, I had people in the neighborhood coming up to me, thanking me for being in the neighborhood. I was like, what? Why are you thanking me to be in it? They said, because we thought blacks were what you are portrayed of in TV. But you're not. They said, we had our own Cosby show right here in our neighborhood. Your father had owned one of the biggest companies in the city. Your mother worked at City Hall. And they always carried themselves with class and made sure we would not get in trouble. When trouble came, because my father, he fought in the military. And he didn't want to. Let me tell you how that happened. When Dad graduated high school, he just figured, he was in Alabama. He graduated high school and he figured that he should have the same rights as anybody else to get an education. So he went to Alabama, University of Alabama. They threw his application in the trash. Who do you think you are? Think you're going to come to school with us? But Dad is not a dude that's going to be deterred. So what he did was he went to Auburn University. Auburn University let him know that he wasn't welcome either. But then a few weeks later, he gets something in the mail. Thank you for volunteering for the Army, which he never did. But instead of not doing it like, we had a president that, had said he had bone spurs. When my father was dying, he was at the VA hospital. And I went up in the VA hospital and they got a picture of our current president. On that picture, there was a sign, a small sign that said Cadet Bone Spurs. It stayed up there for the duration of my father being there. It's not like it was taken down. It was up because that's what the real soldiers felt about this dude. My father fought for this country. His hands got burnt by a flamethrower because he fought for this country. And then he come back and they tried to hang his brother. The Klan tried to hang his brother. But Mother Mack wasn't having it. She was out there with her shotgun. Said, you ain't hanging my boy. They took him to jail. They had a trial. In that little town, they never seen so many black folks with guns, black folks in the streets. And when they came to trial, how could this black country lady end up getting these white lawyers? Not just one, but a couple of them. Civil rights lawyers from up north. And they told the judge that, you know, showed them a case where you have to have a jury of your peers. And that flabbergasted the judge. He said, we don't have no nigs in juries here. This is Alabama. And they had to let them know this is the law. And so they're trying to get my grandmother at the time to just settle for just giving him a short sentence. She said, no, because if you get him up in there, you're going to kill him. And she said, no. And what finally happened, they had my Uncle Will. They told him, you got 24 hours to get out of get out of Alabama. And they were told at that time the Klan is coming for him right then, but they never caught him. Uncle Will went up to Ohio, where he ended up being a pastor, then, you know, almost a bishop because he started churches. Changed his life because he saw his life get so close to death. And then one of his brothers, the oldest one, who was double jointed and strong and everything, they were building smokestacks because the Macks always did their business. And Macks usually, my father said, Macks are either going to be preachers or they're going to be businessmen, but we're going to be leaders. So he was building a smokestack with Uncle Will. He stepped on this plywood board way up. It was rotten. He broke through. Uncle Will tried to grab him, but he knew if he would have grabbed him, he would have went over too. So he watched his brother go like this, snatch his arms back, and as he's going down, he just waved goodbye to his death. And my father was playing for Ohio State at that time, because when he left the Army, they tried to keep him in the Army because they wanted him to be an officer. After they cheated to get him in there, they wanted to keep him in there, and they wouldn't give him a discharge. But Dad said, you know what? I know what my discharge date is. On his discharge date, they found that he played little football for the Army, playing with professional players, and he knew he could play. And he said, okay. They said, hey, Mac, you need to go and get you a scholarship from one of the northern colleges. They'll pay for your school. And he said, what? He applied for Ohio State and Michigan, but he chose Michigan because that's where Uncle Will, he chose Ohio State because that's where Uncle Will and the family was. And he played for Woody Hayes. But after his brother was killed in that accident, he had to quit school and he came home to be with the family. And after that, he reapplied and ended up going to Marquette University in Wisconsin and played for their last football team. And before he died, they had a celebration for them being the last football team that played for that university. But he'd been through a lot of stuff. But that only led to his greatness. And that's why I'm more than inspired to do this. This is my heart. This is my drive, you know.
So, like, the only question I have is there anything he didn't do?
He didn't give up.
Yeah,
he didn't do. He would not. We called him the Wild Bull, and when he went to Oshkosh, we got to understand he's the only black man. All that racism because they voted on 90-something% for George Wallace at the time. Okay, but he went to the sheriff and told him, listen, I'm bringing my family up here. He says, and I don't need to see no burnt crosses on my yard. He said, because if you know the hotheads, you know the racist hotheads in this city. He said, you need to talk to them before I come up here. Because if they come and try to play with me, do understand that I'm not calling you. I don't need no backup. I fought for this country. I know how to handle myself. He said, I will not be calling you. I'll be calling the coroner to pick this dead body off my grass. We had no problems. That's the kind of guy he was. When he brought the brewery, he lost all of his beer contracts, all 19 of them. It's like the next day, everything gone. Like, where we gonna get business from? But he said, son, and he wrote in his book, son, when the going gets tough, I send me. So here's this black man going to all 19 of those establishments. And he got 18 of them back. That's the kind of man he was.
And while the end of the brewery is obviously sad and a bad part of the story, it almost sounds like that was for the best.
Yeah.
With all the work he then did to probably help and reach more people with the group homes.
Yeah. But he always put it this way. He said, son, I was trying to show what we can do. He said that was his motivation, showing that we had the capacity to do it. That we don't have to beg anybody for anything. All we have to do is get an equal opportunity to show what we can do, and we can do it. And when I look at Oak Park, that's why I'm glad that we have this partnership and that this expanding to something bigger, more nationwide and worldwide, as you just heard from my friend there. When he said world, that's what I'm talking about. When Rodg said that, that's it. Because see, Dad went to Africa and they were going to do a plant in Africa. It was just that they weren't Dad didn't trust the stability of the people he was dealing with. He knew they had the money, but he didn't know what was happening. Because one of the people he was dealing with was Idiom, and you're young, you probably don't know who Idiom was.
I do not.
He wasn't a good guy, okay? And he killed a lot of people. So I'm glad he just didn't want us in that environment.
That's probably good, because that one act probably could have completely undid his
we
positive legacy.
We might not have been talking today if we went over.
Yeah.
But the thing is that everything has a season. All that he's been through, now you're looking at his son. And when I was at that 50th year anniversary, when I was speaking to those people and the response that I got, and I looked out there were whites, blacks, and all that. It was like my daddy was speaking through me. I had these notes that I was going to write, but the sun was so bright and glaring, I couldn't even see my computer. And I told him, I'm going to wing it. But after I got done, everybody told me what an awesome job it was. It was just pouring out truth and the heart. It was so amazing. And then I knew I chose the right company, or the right company chose me, but I was made for this moment. You say I tell a good story, and praise God that I do, but I have a story to tell, my brother. And I'm gonna keep on telling this story, because This was a story for this. You know, it didn't happen then, but guess what? Now is the season. Now is the time that it shall come forth. Because we got the right people. Some of those barriers are going to be torn down. Because when we admit what we've done and who we are and make amends, that's what happened with the Jews. I'm writing another book right now on mentoring and looking at the past of what happened. I'm doing research of what has happened in the past. So I kind of know where America's roots came from, where this hate and this greed came from. And the only way it's resolved is when the hate and greed came to Germany. It came out of Germany, as a matter of fact. It came out of Germany. When you look at the Berlin Conference, when they decided to split up Africa for their greedy gain. Many lives were lost. They don't talk about the 2 to 20 million that died in one of the countries. King Leopold decided, I want to control this part. And America definitely backed them. And you know how they empowered them people, or not empowered, forced them people to be more productive. Didn't make sense, but this is what they did. They cut off their hands.
That seems counterproductive.
Yeah, but if you say, I'm gonna cut off your hands if you don't work till you die, you gonna work.
Yeah.
And they have pictures showing people with sometimes both their hands cut off. Okay? So when you see that, that's gonna make you work. And through what they did, killing them, and then all the famine and disease that they brought on, millions died in that country, but we don't hear about it. That we were just cattle. I'm writing about it. I know what I'm talking about. But we are forgiving people too. Because if you cannot forgive, you cannot open the door to your next journey. So when people are angry about what happened in the election, you know, if you saw Dave Chappelle, what he said, I'm in agreement. You know, hey man, we've been doing that, dealing with this for 400 years. You mad right now? Yeah, you're gonna get over it. But what about not being recognized for 400 years? And even when they said they gave you your freedom, they took it away. Because we had senators, we had congressmen, we had black senators, black congressmen before Reconstruction. But what they did to save the country, keep it together, is they sacrificed the blacks again. They gave us back to the South. And that's Jim Crow. So, you know, this is the day there's been change. And in change, there's usually pain comes before change. I'm old enough to see it coming around twice, during the civil rights movement, and then I see it now again. Okay.
So that's a question I have then. Is someone who has been around and witnessed how the tensions and the struggles and the fights for such a long time, do you have hope and feel like that we're at a moment where true progress will be made?
Yes, and it depends totally on us. It depends totally, like it was last time. It depended totally on us. When they said, "Oh, we're gonna start doing things," and then the think tanks said, "You know, we can play this game called reverse discrimination and take those rights back away." Like when they said during Reconstruction, they said, "Oh, you're free, but we're gonna take your rights away." Okay, this time it's not just black folks, but it's a lot of white folks that say, "Hey, we gotta make a change." Okay, that's the difference. And the other part is that every time it happens, you notice during the 60s, the change didn't come until they showed on TV those children getting bitten by them dogs and the fire hose that Bull Connor did on it. That changed the narrative, because that's when America saw itself, and it didn't like what it saw and said, we are not this. So when they saw the officer with his knee on the neck and saw his knee there until he died, they saw what I've seen many times. They ask, why the blacks run when police come? That's what I hear from white folks. Why they run? They shouldn't run. They wouldn't have got shot. No. Listen, you don't understand. In our history, if we were just standing on the corner, you had the right in the South to put us in jail for loitering and put it so high that we couldn't pay it, the fine so high that we couldn't pay it, and we become slaves again. And then you send us out to companies like U.S. Steel to work in the coal mines until we die. And when we die, you burn us in them same fire furnaces. And nobody never did nothing about it. We were still slaves, and you said we were free. This happened till, 1940s or something like that. We knew that when the police came, what they say goes. And for years, you just ran. That you get caught, they can pull a gun out and then put it in your hand and shoot you down, and you still, same stuff that was happening right now. When I was a kid, I was taught that. I got 2 kids in college. One going to University of Wisconsin, now I got 3 kids, all of them in college. I'm talking about my boys. My boys is, one is at the University of Wisconsin, the other one at Valparaiso in Indiana. My daughter is at FAMU, Black College in Florida, doing her thing. She sings, beautiful voice, beautiful person. But with my boys, I teach her to protect herself. She said, Dad, I said, no, I'm gonna teach you how to fight. Something happened to you, I want you to be able to protect yourself. My sons, I said, you're a black man in America. So that, put your hands up, undo all that. The police come, you do that, be nice and be super nice, because you don't know if that's a KKK behind that badge or not. And they can do what they want, just like they did to that young man that got snuffed out on TV. That was like a public lynching. So we still got to forgive, I'm not like Chappelle said. He said, but the thing is, I don't have no hate in me, but y'all hate each other. He's like, that ain't even right. He said, when worse stuff was done to us, I still don't have no hate. I get mad. I'm like my daddy, I'm gonna stand up, but I'm not gonna hate you.
That's what I saw what you were talking about, and I thought what the one thing you said that made sense was he hates that feeling.
Yep.
He doesn't hate the people. He hates that feeling.
That's it. And when it happens to you, I hate that. When I was a little kid, when I was in Oshkosh, I go in the store. My parents send me to the store. I'm just going to the store, buy some groceries. But I see women, oh no, grabbing their purse, like I'm gonna come get their purse. I see the security people, automatically they follow me everywhere I go, like I don't see them. And it was a trip, because then I'm a young guy, I watch these young white kids stealing them brine while they watching me. I'm like, ain't this something? But I wasn't doing that. My father, I was more scared of my father than I was from the police.
I was just gonna say, from the way you talked about your father, he's probably the one you had the most to worry about if you got out of line.
His fist looks like it's about that big to me, And I'm gonna tell you the truth. I tried him one time. That was a bad mistake. I balled up my fist. He was giving me a whipping for something in school. And it was a trip. It was a racial thing. I didn't even do it. But it was the teachers didn't like me. I was the only black kid. And they always tried to get on me. There's these two. One in math and one in social studies. I'll never forget them. And no, not the one in math and one in woodworking of all things. My father came, got me, he was beating me, and I knew it was wrong, so I was like so angry, I balled up my fist. And he said, "Oh, you a man now." Shouldn't have did that. Yeah, boy. And then made me walk back to school. You know, you talking about somebody that was hot, had murder in my eyes, but I still had to forgive. That's crazy. I'm the one that the injustice was done to, but I had to forgive. And my father apologized years later when I told him what was happening. He said, "Son, why you just tell me you weren't hearing it, Pops? You were believing what they were saying." Yeah. You know? And he was like, "Sorry, son." But he told me, "I'm proud of the man that you have become. You take care of your family. You raise your kids. They're in college. You've done well, son. You married he fell in love with my wife before I did." You know. And as these brothers, they saw my wife. She's a very beautiful lady, a very good person, you know. But you know, and I'm lucky to have her. But I had to teach my sons to be independent. And so with People's Beer, this is legacy. This is my opportunity to give honor to that man who's on the wall back there, who did all this fighting so I can fight again. And I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure that this goes the way it needs to go. Yeah, it's opening up in Wisconsin, but let me tell you how God works. A young lady that I went to school with in Oshkosh saw this video that I made. And she said, "This is so amazing. You were up there for the 50th anniversary." And she saw it and she was like, "Oh my God, that was so beautiful." She said, "I've been in marketing and public relations for 30 years. I'm gonna contact some of my reporter friends." And so, you know, after this virus thing, I'll be doing a story with Spectrum Cable up there. But then a week later, she sends me another message on Facebook. "Hey, you know, one of my clients, they used to distribute beer in Wisconsin. And I talked to them and they gave me the name of the president. I think you two need to talk. You seem like two extraordinary people. I think you need to talk. And you know about family businesses. Talk to this gentleman." And what I always know in business, you got to make sure who you're getting in bed with, because it's like a marriage. And if you can't lay your life with that person and deal with that person, don't get in business with. You can't trust that person, feel there's something funny about that person, don't get in business with. So I told him this and he said, "Exactly right." And we had a good conversation. And after I got a feeling that this would work and had my niece call up too, then I passed it on to Oak Park. And the rest is history. See, it's all coming together now, but I'm gonna give my 110.
So,
and one thing that the mayor told me was, he said, "Nobody can tell the story of your father like you can." He says, "You're gonna be the face of this beer." And I believe it's for a reason, brother. So what were you gonna say, man? I'm sorry.
I was gonna ask when is it that the books come out again? It was
The
early
book,
next year, right?
The books will be coming out next year.
Okay.
Our main focus right now is really pushing the beer to the point where we know that this being distributed in certain parts of the country. Then I believe the books will come and there'll be another leap that this project is going to take. And then Hopefully, we have a nationwide plan, and that's going to be another leap. Then who knows? Movies or whatever, because it's a story that needs to be told, and it's an American story. It's an American story of fighting to the end, but doing it right. You know what I'm saying? And never giving up. And having the grit of American. This is a real American who fought and did it all the right ways, but the government fought against him. But this time, one thing that the president-elect said that touched my heart, he said, "You have our backs. Now I'm going to have your back." And so I believe him. And I believe that he has a good heart. I told you, I always look at a person's heart. I looked at the last one that was in there, that is in there currently. I looked at his heart too, and I'm not going to talk about it. But I'm going to talk about this man because he has a good heart. And that might be very good for this country. Because we need reconciliation in more ways than one. See, all my father said, all we as blacks want, we don't want to say that we're better than you. All we want is the same rights as Americans as you have. And if we get the same rights and same opportunities, let us do what we do. That's what he did back then, and they stopped him. That's what I'm doing right now, and it's not. Look at the screen. Look at Geoff. Look at Rodg. This is America, baby. And I'm loving this family because we fighting on one cause, American cause. It says we the people, not us the people or they the people. It says we the people. You can't cut nobody out. There's all opportunity to rise. Let this country rise and be what it is. So I'm excited. I know I talk a little too much. My wife in there laughing at me. But you got me hyped up, man. I appreciate it, man.
So are the plans for the next areas of the country where the People's Beer will be available solidified, or is that still in finalization?
Too much in it. What I will say, there are ongoing plans that's very positive.
You're unmuted, Geoff, if you want to weigh in on that.
Yeah, we I think ultimately the first two places we would like to try to push the beer out to would be Georgia and Wisconsin. Those are the ones we've actively, as Mr. Mack relayed, he's come into contact with a distribution company there, and I know KJ's reached out to a couple of distribution companies in the Georgia area as well. So now it's just a matter of making the beer for one, and then doing all the research on contracts and stuff like that to start getting beer shipped out there. So
awesome. Well, hopefully you keep me up to date on that so I can spread the word on that, and I hope eventually soon that it'll be available in the DC area. So I'm sure it would be very well received.
Okay.
And I hope that there's an audio version of those books that you are the reader of, Ted.
Great idea.
That's the plan. That is the plan. Actually, I was told that I was reading it to one of my mentees. I was telling him the project, and I said, let me read some of it to you. And he was sitting there. He said, Mr. Mack, he said, I'm just amazed by hearing it. The words, how you say it just has me amazed. I'm sitting here in awe. He said, that's what you should do. You should record it so there will be an audio version.
I think it would be criminal if there wasn't an audio version of you reading it. Oh, I mean, one, just the passion that's going to come through from you being the reader of it, and your voice is phenomenal.
Wow, thank you.
Yours is great too, Geoff. We just
I can't compete with that. I'm sorry. You don't have to sugarcoat it for me.
So have you two been drinking the People's Beer? Because it looked like you're drinking 16-ounce cans, but I've only seen pictures of 12-ounce cans. Or is it going to be available in both?
So yes, we are drinking a 16-ounce version of it.
Okay.
The original first recipe we did in 6-pack 12-ounce cans. And then the 50th anniversary version, which you see here, is we did in the 16-ounce cans.
Okay.
So moving forward, I think we are going to stick with the 16-ounce cans moving forward.
Because you can actually buy them.
Yes. Yeah, the 12-ounce cans are really hard to come by,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for your time. I think at some point we should dedicate a whole episode to talk about Oak Park, and get an in-depth story of you guys too. Maybe do like an update episode in a few months or whenever, when you can give a little more details on distribution of the People's Beer, and then we can go in depth of telling Oak Park story.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
That's all.
So, thank you, gentlemen, so much for your time and the story. It's the information that Rodg had sent me made it sound interesting, but it was way better than that. So,
wow.
And if I can say, like, before we chime off, Chris,
whatever you want.
Thank you for having us. And it's like Mr. Mack said, man, we're on a paradigm shift right now.
Yeah.
So with his story, and this is the rebirth, it's kind of like you have to be crucified to come back.
Yeah. Wow.
So with the knowledge and the know-how and the technology, we're going to move forward. But like, I got to thank you for responding.
Yeah.
Because this is something huge for us. And we definitely want you to be a part of this. It's like maybe one day we'll all write a book talking about the People's Beer movement, So thank you for having us. And we know the beer didn't get to you today, but when you have it in hand, Geoff and I, we're going to go live on our live stream on Thursday at 4 p.m. If you can chime in, we can do like a little review on the beer and you can talk about the beer. But we definitely want to, have your input on the product. But Mr. Mack.
Yes, sir.
I don't even want to talk after you speak. So
I don't either.
I'm just like, dude, we can just show our faces and be like, yeah, we brewed it, kegged it, canned it, and let you handle the rest. But
all team, brother. One love. We do it together.
Blessings all
this
around.
This is my part. You have your part. And as a team, we're going to make it work.
Yes, we will.
I think my father would want, and that's what he must be loving in heaven right now.
Yeah.
That I'm connected to guys like you, and people like Chris can bring us on and get the story told. This is powerful, and I'm thankful because this was a country that held him back. But it's allowing his son to make that comeback. And I'm thankful. Heart love. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much, Chris, for having us. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to a follow-up as well as some chats on Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys. And thank you everyone for watching and listening. Cheers.
All right. Okay.